Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video in which I will be beginning to show my Manfred Mann collection, starting with my singles and EPs. Now, I don't really collect Manfred Mann's Earth Band, it's more just the 1960s material that I like to collect. So that's what I'm going to be showing you today, and I'm going to begin with my EP collection. So I've got their first EP here, and that's Manfred Mann's Cock-a-Hoop with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's got the 5 original members of the band there, and there's the back, and it has the tracks Cock-a-Hoop, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Without You, and Why Should We Not. So that's their first 3 singles plus a B-side, and they were originally on HMV, or His Master's Voice, and this is the EP label with the red His Master's Voice logo up there, and there's side 2. This came out in 1964. And here's their next one, Groovin' with Manfred Mann, and this includes the famous single Do Wah Diddy Diddy, which was a #1 for them. And there's the back, and it's got an original sticker at the top, Savile Bros Limited record shop, sells shields, which is a nice interesting piece of history there. This one also came out in 1964, and again is on the HMV label. And here is the one in the middle, and that includes a cover of a Bob Dylan song with God on Our Side, although this is a very good EP all round actually, all 4 tracks are very good. And the actual song, the one in the middle, introduces every member of the band in quite a funny way. It's quite a catchy song as well. And this one came out in 1965, again on the usual HMV label. And here's their EP, No Living Without Loving, and that's because the first track is There's No Living Without Your Loving. I've heard that song covered by a few people actually, and it also features their version of I Put a Spell on You, and it's a really good version. And there's the back. And label. Although this wasn't the case for all of Manfred Mann's EPs, the majority of them did very well in the charts. They had quite a few EPs at #1, and #2, and #3 in the mid-60s. Although I suppose that's when the EP market was at its height really, and the EP market kind of became less popular in the late 60s. And this is a copy of Manfred Mann's Machines EP, and this is one of my favourite EPs of all time. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. Interesting cover as well, and has 4 really good tracks on. Including a cover of an Everly Brothers song, When Will I Be Loved. It's a much faster version than the Everly Brothers, but I think it's a really good version. And there's the label for this one. Now, at the very end of 1966, the original lead singer of Manfred Mann, Paul Jones, stepped down to pursue a solo career, and a gentleman called Mike Darbo took over the role of lead singer of Manfred Mann from 1966 to 1969. And to be fair, Manfred Mann did have a stream of hits under both lead singers, so it just goes to show the quality. The quality wasn't lost when the lead singers was changed, which is good. And I've also got an Australian copy of the Machines EP. However, it's signed by Paul Jones, who was the lead singer, Mike Hugg, and Tom Guinness. And I didn't obtain these signatures in person. I just bought the EP like that, but I thought that was a nice little feature. And here is the first of the 2 instrumental EPs that Manfred Mann did. And this one's called Instrumental Asylum. And Manfred Mann were known for doing quite a few instrumentals as well, a lot of which are actually really jazzy or really bluesy. And they're all cover songs. So you've got The Who and the Rolling Stones, Sonny and Cher, and I can't remember who does Still I'm Sad. But they're all instrumentals of popular songs. And they're all very good. This one came out in 1966 as well. And came out just a month after the Machines EP. Although Paul Jones isn't pictured on the EP cover, because by that point he'd left the band. And this is Manfred Mann's second instrumental EP, called Instrumental Assassination. And this features some more cover songs, including ones by the Trogs. And the third track, Get Away, is a really weird song, and they do some really weird stuff round about this point. Because under Mike Darbo, they took a more experimental turn, I think, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just quite different to the stuff they were doing before. And this is the only Manfred Mann EP to be on the Fontana label, because in 1966, as well as changing lead singers, they also changed labels from HMV to Fontana. And although the singles on this label would normally be blue, the EP here is black. And now we have Manfred Mann's final EP, known as Was. Now the reason for that is that in 1966 they released an album called As Is, and that was with the new lead singer, so that's showing you what the band is now. And this here features the final material of Paul Jones's recordings with Manfred Mann, and so this is the As Was EP. And this EP features some really good tracks, including a cover of an Ike and Tina Turner song, I Can't Believe What You Say. But it's a really good EP, I think. It's also a very difficult EP to get. This is by far the hardest one to get. As you can see, this isn't a brilliant copy. It's got some corner folding and some writing on the back, but it's still nice to have one. And this came out in October 1966. And is on the HMV label. For much of Paul Jones's solo career, he was on the HMV label. And this is actually a foreign EP, and it's got 4 songs with Mike Darbo on, pictured there. And those songs are Ha Ha Said the Clown, which was a single, Feeling So Good, Each and Every Day, and All I Want to Do. And this isn't signed, I don't think, but I'm not entirely sure what this writing is on the back. Just some scribbling of some sort. This is a French EP, I believe, and that's presumably in French on the back, and therefore I can't read what it says. And this is on a green label, which is unusual. It's a nice dark green though. And now we come on to Manfred Mann's singles. Now there are quite a few of these, so I won't spend too long on each. Now this is their debut single, Why Should We Not, which was an instrumental track, and it absolutely bombed. It didn't chart at all, which is a shame. And this came out in 1963. It was an original composition by Manfred Mann himself, who was the keyboard player in the band. And Brother Jack is the B-side. Also an instrumental track. Next up we have Cock-a-Hoop, which was written and sung by the lead singer, Paul Jones. And this one also failed to chart, so the first two singles are fairly difficult to get as a result. And then this was their first big hit, 5 4 3 2 1, which I believe was top 10, and was also the theme tune for the opening of Ready Steady Go. Came out in 1964, this one. And here we have a slightly more obscure single. It did chart, but it wasn't a massive hit, and that is Hubble Bubble Toil and Trouble. One of their slightly more unusual ones. Pretty good song though. And then I'm Your Kingpin on the back, which is good. And here is one of their most famous ones by far, Do Wah Diddy Diddy, which is still constantly played on the radio today, and it's used frequently on adverts. And there's the B-side. So this is really when Manfred Mann were coming into the prime, because they were getting top 10 hit after top 10 hit. And the next of those is Sha-La-La, one of my personal favourites. Really excellent track. And John Hardy's the B-side, which is also a pretty good instrumental track. It's interesting that many instrumentals by Manfred Mann are arranged by every single member of the band, so they all collaborate on those quite often. And we have Come Tomorrow, which was a top 5 hit. I think it got to number, I want to say number 4, but I might be wrong. It was certainly something around that area. And this is another of my personal favourites. We're into 1965 now. And What Did I Do Wrong is the B-side. And here we have Oh No Not My Baby, which was actually a cover, and it's been covered by several artists since, including Rod Stewart, which is a version I'm also familiar with. It's a Goff and King composition, and their compositions are often covered by many artists because they're so good. And What Am I Doing Wrong is the B-side, and it is very, very similar to the previous B-side, because one's called What Did I Do Wrong, one's called What Am I Doing Wrong, so they can be easily confused. And here we have a cover of the Bob Dylan classic, If You've Gotta Go, Go Now. Very good version. They cover a few Bob Dylan songs actually. And Stay Around is the B-side. And here we have another number 1 hit for Manfred Mann, Pretty Flamingo. A really, really nice track from 1966. And You're Standing By is the B-side. And I've actually got a promo for this next single, and this is not one that many people are familiar with, and I believe this is a cover version as well. It's a song called You Gave Me Somebody to Love, and this is actually Paul Jones's final single with Manfred Mann. And although I personally don't have anything against this song, it is below average for them. So in a way it might have been nice if Pretty Flamingo was his last one, because then he would have been able to go out on a high, because this one only got 30 something in the charts. And it's back with the cover of the classic Poison Ivy, which has been done by many bands, including the Rolling Stones and the Dave Clark 5. Loads of people have done Poison Ivy, but this is actually my favourite version. So I actually prefer the B-side to the A-side. But both sides are very good in my opinion. So that's the promo version, and this is the regular single version on HMV. Also, it is Manfred Mann's last single on his Master's Voice. And what I have here is actually a Canadian single, and it's got a track from the Machines EP, When Will I Be Loved. It's on the Capital Swell label. I'll just take it out of its sleeve so you can see it a bit better. When Will I Be Loved, backed with did you have to do that? And now we have the Mike Darbo singles, begin with another Bob Dylan cover, Just Like a Woman, which got to number 10 in 1966. And that's got a very good B-side on it called I Wanna Be Rich. That's one of my favourite Manfred Mann B-sides. And here we have one of the more well-known singles of this period of Manfred Mann, and that is Semi-Detached Suburban Mr. James. Excellent track. And that's backed with Morning After the Party. And here we have an original picture cover for Ha Ha Said the Clown. Another very good single. And what I like is that it advertises the As Is LP that I mentioned earlier, and it also advertises the original cassette that you can get. And it also has the Instrumental Assassination EP on there as well. And there's the label for Ha Ha Said the Clown, released in 1967. And this also has a good B-side on it, Feeling So Good. And here we have a song called So Long Dad, and I've heard a few different versions of this, including a version by Alan Price, which is quite good. I would say this is probably Manfred Mann's weakest single ever, to be honest. It's alright, but it's absolutely nothing special, and surprisingly it didn't really chart or anything. And it's back with Funniest Gig. To be honest, I would say 1967 on the whole was a bit of an off year for Manfred Mann. Apart from a couple of exceptions like Ha Said the Clown, on the whole the stuff they released in that year just didn't do that well, or was experimental but not necessarily successful. And this is a foreign picture cover for that single, So Long Dad. I believe it's Dutch, and it's in fact from Belgium, not Holland. It's from Belgium, this. There it is. Got the jukebox centre. And this is an instrumental track released as a single by Manfred Mann in 1967, and I would say one of the better singles from this year. It's called Sweet Pea. Didn't do so well successfully. I think it was only in the 30s somewhere that it charted, but I think it's really good. And that's backed with One Way. One thing that's interesting about Manfred Mann at this point is that Klaus Voormann played with the band for pretty much the whole of the Mike Darbo era, and he was the person who the Beatles knew in Hamburg and designed the famous Revolver album cover. And here's Mighty Quinn, which was a #1 hit, and it was a cover of Bob Dylan's song. And this is really where Manfred Mann got back on track for me. And then by request, Edwin Garvey is the B-side. And here we have a picture cover for Up the Junction, which was a film released in 1968, and Manfred Mann did the soundtrack for it. And there's the label for it. And it's backed with Sleepy Hollow. Now the singer Mike Darbo, although famous for his participation in Manfred Mann, he's also just as famous as a songwriter in his own right. And although he didn't write many singles for Manfred Mann, he wrote quite a few really successful songs for other people, including Build Me Up Buttercup for the Fortunes. Sorry, not the Fortunes, the Foundations. But perhaps most famously, he wrote the song Handbags and the Glad Rags, which has been covered by so many people, originally by Chris Farlow, but perhaps more famously by people such as Rod Stewart. But so he wrote some really famous songs, and that's just another copy of Up the Junction. And here we have My Name is Jack, a very catchy single. Backed with There Is a Man. and Fox on the Run, which is not to be confused with the 70s song Fox on the Run by The Sweet. It's a different song. And then Too Many People on the back. And here we have the final Mike Darboe single with Manfred Mann, and that is Ragamuffin Man, which is an excellent song and one of my favourite Manfred Mann singles, in fact, from 1969, which was when the second version of Manfred Mann broke up, with the first version being the Paul Jones years from 63 to 66, and the second version being Mike Darboe from 66 to 69. But then in 1969, they formed what was known as Manfred Mann Chapter 3. And this was basically, it was almost kind of prog rock type stuff they were doing. And it's actually, although it might not sound like it would be that good, it's actually pretty damn good in my opinion. On the Vertigo label, which is famous for its prog rock bands, there's the side here. And this single is called Happy Being Me, and Devil Woman is on the B-side. Came out in 1970. Now this Manfred Mann Chapter 3 didn't have all the same members in as Manfred Mann Chapter 2. People like Tom McGuinness and Mike Darboe left the band, although I know Manfred Mann himself and Mike Hugg at least stayed for Manfred Mann Chapter 3. And they were only around for 2 or 3 years, so they didn't come up with all that much stuff. But then in 1971 is when Manfred Mann's Earth Band was established. However, before I show you that, there's various other things we've got. So this was Living Without You, which I believe is considered the first Manfred Mann's Earth Band single, even though it doesn't actually say Manfred Mann's Earth Band on the label. And I've got to say, this is an absolutely astonishingly good track. If you ever get to hear the song on YouTube, it's fantastic. And Tribute is the B-side, and it's on the Phillips label. And here we have the Michelin theme, which was composed by Manfred Mann and Mike Hugg. And this is the picture cover for it. And it's got at the bottom there, Go Radial, Go Michelin ZX. And there's the back. Lots of pictures on. And just a bit about the recording down there. And you can get 2 different versions of this single. I've got this version here, which is just a normal sleeve, as you would expect for an average single. And here's the label. It's just a one-sided thing. Got nothing on the B side there, it's completely blank. But then you've got this version here, which is slightly more elaborate. Because the sleeve opens up into a little gatefold type thing. So you've got what's normally on the back on the inside gatefold, and then it's just black on the back. And then the record comes out the side there. So there are a couple of different versions of that single you can get. And here we have another advertisement theme that Manfred Mann and Mike Hugg did, and this is the Ski Full of Fitness theme from 1970. I'll just take it out of its cardboard cover so you can see it a little bit better. There it is. And the back's just something called Sweet Baby Jane. Actually, this looks like it came out in 1971, not 1970. And I've only got a few Earth Band singles, so I'll just quickly go through those. This one on the Vertigo label, it's Joybringer from 1973. To be honest, I think the only connection between Manfred Mann's Earth Band and Manfred Mann was that the actual person called Manfred Mann was in every single version, but other than that, they were a completely different band, really. And then this is Father of Day, Father of Night. Also Bob Dylan from 74. They're on the bronze label here. And here we have one of their absolute most famous singles, Blinded by the Light, written by Bruce Springsteen. That was released in 1976. And I've got one without the centre here, and that's Davies on the Road Again, also a very good track from 1978. And here we have a slightly lesser known one because it didn't chart too highly, but I think it's an absolutely brilliant song. And that's called You Angel You. Once again written by Bob Dylan. So, as I said, Manfred Mann do a lot of Bob Dylan songs. From 1979, they do a very good version of that. And this is the Redemption song, cover of the Bob Marley classic, with a picture cover. Though I believe someone's actually drawn on the picture cover and done some funny faces. And this is actually on a later bronze label, which is green. And here we have Manfred Mann's version of the classic song by The Jam called Going Underground. And this is Manfred Mann's Earth Band with Chris Thompson. This is one of the later ones. And interestingly, it's actually got no label on side one, so I don't know, this was just a printing error, I assume it was, but it's actually got no label, even though there was actually music on here. And then it's got just the B-side label there. And now, just before I end this video, I just want to show you a few singles I've got from members of Manfred Mann when they went solo. So the first one I've got is just an example of what Tom McGuinness did when he went solo. He didn't have a huge career, but he did a few interesting things, and he was part of McGuinness Flint. Obviously, he was Tom McGuinness, and they had a few successful songs, but most famously When I'm Dead and Gone, which is an amazing track from 1970. They also did stuff like Malt and Barley Blues. But nice to see that even members of the band who weren't like the lead singer or anything were able to have a bit of success. Mike Darwin did some stuff actually. Again, not a huge amount, but he worked with the lead singer of the Dave Clark 5, Mike Smith, and did an album with him called Smith and Darbo, which I haven't actually heard, but I dare say it would be quite good. But anyway, the bulk of what I've got is Paul Jones' solo material. So this is when he left Manfred Mann to pursue a solo career. Now, despite it seeming like he had really good prospects, his solo career never actually really got off the ground, to be honest, which is a shame, because there's a lot of wasted potential. But he did a few good singles, and perhaps the best of those was his very, very first one from 1966, High Time, which is an excellent song, and that got to number 3 in 1966. And this is a promotional copy, and it says 7th of October 1966 as the release date. And it's got a good B-side. I can't hold on much longer. And this is the regular version of the single on HMV. And Paul Jones would remain on the HMV label until 1967, at which point he would switch to the Columbia label. So he didn't stay on HMV for much longer than Manfred Mann did. And anyway, the next thing I've got is an American promo copy of High Time on the Capitol label, the nice Capitol sleeve. And that's got a different B-side on it. It Is Coming Closer. Also a good track, which is also very good. And it's from a film called Privilege that Paul Jones did in the late 60s. It's quite a weird film, but I would say it's definitely worth a watch. You can get it on Blu-ray, and I've got a copy of it. It's one of those kind of artistic late 60s films, so it's not particularly what you would call light viewing. It's not really comedic either, but it's definitely worth a watch. And you can get the soundtrack of the film on LP as well. And here's a regular single copy. This is actually a Soul Centre copy as well. And Sonny Boy Williamson is the B-side. And here we have another single from 1967, and here's a promotional copy, Thinking In For Me. I think it's really from here on out that the material he was doing wasn't really brilliant. It's a shame really, because he was an absolute first-class vocalist in my opinion, Paul Jones. He's an amazing singer. Just the material he was getting was really really substandard, really. And it wasn't anything like the sort of stuff he should have been getting, because, as I said, he really had the potential to make it big, but he just wasn't getting the required material. And in a way, it's kind of sad, therefore, that he left Manfred Mann when he did. But I mean, it made way for some very good Mike Darbo material with Manfred Mann. So, it's not the end of the world. Thinking in for me, not a bad song by any means. The chorus is quite catchy. And Softly Levita is the B-side. And here we have Sons and Lovers, which is quite a good song. Promo copy. That's backed with Three Sisters. And I don't know if you can see on the centre of this single, it's got Radio Colchester. So that's where this promo's come from. And again, here is the regular single version of Sons and Lovers. And the B-side there. And here is the promo version of the next Paul Jones single. And this is called And the Sun Will Shine. Now, this was actually written by the Bee Gees, believe it or not. And I can't remember if it's the A-side or the B-side. Features Paul McCartney on drums, apparently. And also Jeff Beck on guitar. And here's the single version of that. From 1968. And there's the B-side, The Dog Presides. Two pretty good songs, actually. And this is one of his slightly weirder ones. When I was 6 years old, well, I say weird, it's not that it's a weird song, it's just that it's not very commercial. And You Have No Idea is the B-side. This came out 17th of May 1968. And here's the regular version. And from late 1968, we have Paul Jones's cover of the song Aquarius from the musical Hair. And this is weird, but I think it's weird in a good way, in a likeable way. And I actually think this one's more commercial than the majority of singles he'd had up until this point, although it didn't really chart or anything. It's one of my favourites. And this actually came out 29th of November 1968. So, and then Pisces as the B-side, which is actually Paul Jones's star sign. I remember reading somewhere. And of course, we've got the regular version of the Aquarius single. Same B-side, of course. And here we have Paul Jones's final single on the Columbia label, and that is a cover of the Mama Cass hit It's Getting Better. And this is in 1969, this was released. Also a good version. It's slightly different to Mama Cass's version. It's a bit faster, but I think it's still a really good version. This came out 18th of April 69. And Not Before Time is the B-side. And there's the single version. Now, interestingly, like Manfred Mann, Paul Jones also did some stuff on Vertigo in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was also quite proggy as well. And he did one album on Vertigo called Crucifix and a Horseshoe, and that's, although it's so different to everything he's done before, it's actually really good in my opinion. And this is the single from that album. It's called Life After Death. And although it was never going to be a massive hit, I think it's a really, really good song. And it's actually written by Paul Jones himself, as are many of the songs from that album. And The Mighty Ship is the B-side, also quite good. There's actually a slightly shorter version than the album version of The Mighty Ship as well. I think the album one's about 40 or so seconds longer. And here is the single version. like the Manfred Mann Chapter 3 one, has got the two song titles on one side and then just the vertical swirl pattern on the other, which I really like. And the last couple of things I've got are just a few Paul Jones extras. So here we've got a Japanese single. Privilege is on one side and Free Me is on the other. And I'll just show you the back there. It comes in a really nice Toshiba Records sleeve. And there's the black Odeon label with the Privilege on it. And finally we have the original UK EP of Paul Jones' Privilege with 4 songs on. This is Paul Jones' own EP. It's got Privilege, Free Me, My Poor Heart Is Surely Breaking, and I've Been a Bad Bad Boy. And this is on the HMV label. Alright, so that's the end of today's video. I'll be showing my Manfred Mann LPs in my next video. I'd have shown them in this one, but it's already a very long video, so I'll just end it here and do a part 2. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing these, and I'll see you all next time.